This is Talk is Sheep, a podcast by the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. Come along as we take conversations that matter to you into the high alpine.
Mr. Hamilton, live from balmy Prince George. I understand it's a bit of a cooker there this week.
Oh, yeah, we're under a heat warning. So, like I said on this episode, that means we're getting to the 18, 19 degrees Celsius. But in all honesty, it can get hot up here, like mid-30s. It's a dry heat, though, right? We're not going to complain about the humidity the way you do down there on the coast, because it's a different sort of heat. But it sucks when it gets that hot. But we've had pretty rainy summer, spring, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it's been weird, but we'll take the heat for the week or two.
Yeah, for sure. So first week of August, we're rolling into the sheep opener. So you mentioned let's do a giveaway on this one. So set it up for us. What are we doing?
Well, don't know what we're going to give away yet, but I think it'd be something pretty kick-ass if the first person that emails us a legal BC sheep, inspected legal, picture the plug, picture the field animal, and email it to communications@wildsheepsociety.com. We'll have something cool for you. I don't know if it's going to be hat, hoodie, shirt, mix of the above.
$100 at the store.
That works.
So send us your picture. We'll put it up on the Instagram page. You have to be able to post it. We have to be able to post it. But like Steve said, it has to be CI'd.
Yeah.
It has to be a 2022 sheep. Yeah. And, we've been talking lots about, harvesting legal rams, harvesting old rams, mature rams. So consistent with that theme, we know there's some rams down already by day 3 of the season. So, love to see your sheep, but get your CI done. And first one to do that for us, that shares a photo with us, we'll get you some swag to the store.
We might even be nice and give it to the second person as well. There could be a couple of packages here. We just want to see some legally inspected sheep.
Yeah, awesome. So Jurassic's 1 week out. So the Jurassic Classic, it's our fundraiser. We're fishing for sturgeon on the Fraser River down in Chilliwack, and we're raising money for wild sheep in British Columbia. Great event. Just a great weekend, great time for conservation, and a lot of fun. We got a bunch of stuff we're doing that weekend. So we're going to be drawing our Stone Glacier raffle. Actually, I think there's 5 raffles we're drawing for this weekend. So most of them are sold out. So thank you to all of our supporters for buying tickets. Of course, our donors. We have 1 package left. It's our Stone Glacier raffle, and a handful of tickets left. There's not much left. There's less than a week. There's about a week to go on that. So if you're thinking about buying some raffle tickets, you want to do it now. We're just about sold out, but that will have you set up for the mountains. It's got all the gear you need from Stone Glacier, tent, backpack, all your hunting gear, everything you need. So great package. Check it out.
Yeah.
What else we got going on?
What
are we doing?
We got the membership drive that is concluding there too, don't we? Speaking of sturgeon fishing.
Yeah. So we're going to draw this membership giveaway on the Fraser River. It's a fully guided fishing trip for sturgeon on the Fraser River. And thanks to our good friends over at Wood Wheaton for sponsoring that. And that's the first place prize. We have a second and third place prize as well. Frontiersman Gear is giving away a knife, and then also a swag package from Wild Sheep BC. So if you're gonna buy a membership, do it now. If you got one, extend it by a year. You get your name in. You can upgrade to Life. You can upgrade to Monarch. Everyone's eligible. Anyone that's bought since, I think it goes all the way back to January.
If not before.
Yeah, I can't remember the start date on that. But this is a great time to upgrade. Let's keep our membership numbers growing as we do our conservation work in British Columbia. And we're going to draw that on, I believe it's on Sunday night at the Jurassic. Yeah. So, make sure you get your membership and keep helping us do our great work for conservation in BC.
Yeah. Raffles like this put over $1 million onto the ground in BC in the last 5 years or so. So that's where your money goes. Results on the ground. And we've had some burns go off this year, and we've had some property purchases. Every little bit, you may not think $30 a year, $40 a year helps, but it does. It all adds up. So
yeah, absolutely. So this is episode 85. This is Branlin Shockey. Branlin's done such great work in the hunting community, I guess. Maybe that's not the right word, but he's done a ton of work, and you'll recognize that name, Shockey, right? So we've had Jim on the show. I think he was episode 60. And the cool thing is Branlin's forged his own way. He's gained his own following, his own fame, doing his own thing. He's done a ton of production work on the videography side. He's also done a ton of work behind the camera. So we talked to Branlin what it's like to be on the road and doing this kind of stuff, to be out there, the videography work, but then also the production work and the things that he's done over the past couple of decades, and then what he's working on now, what he's going to be working on in the future. And I'll tell you, this was an easy podcast for me. Just sit there and listen to the stories. Right?
Yeah, he's very much like his dad when it comes to the storytelling. You, as soon as he opens his mouth, you just know it's going to be well spun, and you just go, wow, this is good, a good listen. And could have him around a campfire any day and just shoot the shit with him and listen to his experiences and what it's like to be 2 feet away from a lion, protected is the word I wouldn't use, by a sheet of fabric. So that was pretty puckering, we'll say. I can only imagine it from his point of view. So yeah, great guy to talk to, and I look forward to doing it again.
Off to episode 85 with Branlin Shockey. Enjoy.
Across Canada and throughout the world, if you come across a campfire in the woods, on a mountaintop, or next to a river, you'll find warm company and friendly people gathered around. Regardless of your lifestyle or place you call home, we invite you to learn more about what it means to be a hunter in the modern era. If you love the outdoors, care about where your food comes from, and are concerned for the future of wildlife and the environments that they need to survive, pull up a seat. We have a story to tell. Welcome to our campfire.
Well, good afternoon, Branlin. Welcome to Talk of Sheep. Thanks for agreeing to come on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Cool. So before we got going here, we touched a little bit about where you're sitting at. So maybe give us an update on what part of the world you're in, what you're up to these days, and what's on the agenda for your fall. I'm sure there'll be some chasing some critters around somewhere with a camera or likewise. So
yeah. I grew up in British Columbia, obviously. So when I think of home, I think of big mountains and a little bit of rain and oceans. And but about a year ago, my wife and I and our 2 kids moved down to Kansas City. So I am calling you guys from Kansas City right now. It's about 100 degrees outside. Very much not like BC is this time of year. In terms of like what I've got planned, I mean, we can get all into that. I got all kinds of stuff, I guess, coming up. I don't, it's funny. I don't chase critters around as much as I used to. So, I spent obviously 10 years, following people around with a camera on the sides of mountains and in jungles and all over the planet. And that stuff has changed a little bit for me recently. So, the big project that I'm shooting coming up here is actually a project for the Outdoor Channel. But it's not hunting. It's actually about, I don't know if I can say what the name and everything about it, but it's about American manufacturers and like bringing, really cool like entrepreneurs, like their vision for these like USA made products that they're bringing over, and they're bringing skills over from different parts of the world and learning it here and building things here. So that's kind of what I'm about to dive into now.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot there. So I guess let's back it up, and we'll get there eventually and dive into that project. But okay. So you grew up in BC. So I'm guessing you grew up on the island. Is that correct? Like, is that the family home? Is that kind of where you grew up, or because you guys have been in the island for 30 years, right? Or your dad and family?
Yeah. The island was. I lived away. I lived in Vancouver for a little bit. Like, it was even in Kelowna for about 6 months, in Victoria too. But yeah, we still actually have a house right in Maple Bay, actually right in Vancouver Island.
Yeah, right on. So you grew up, and I guess how did growing up, like, and being part of the Shockey family, how did that influence what you do today? So obviously, you guys are no stranger to camera work and TV and that sort of stuff. Did that help shape who you are? You haven't necessarily followed in the footsteps of your father, and he's got quite the legacy that you could follow into, and you've certainly plotted your own path, which I always thought was really, really cool about you. So tell us a little bit about your early influence and how that adapted to where you are today, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Dad and Mom have been gigantic influences for myself, obviously, and my sister. She probably followed a little bit more closely in Dad's footsteps than I did. But, Dad's got big footsteps, like really big. So as a son, that's it's funny. I'm only recently kind of looking back on, growing up with someone like Dad and realizing like how, crazy that upbringing really was, like how different, being the son of, one of the most famous hunters on the planet, really was. Cause at the time you adapt to all this and that's normal for you. Right. So, Dad going and gallivanting around the world and, traveling for 300 days a year and then taking me on some of those trips, right. As like a younger kid, basically, I was doing things that are very outside the normal for most people. But for me at the time, was normal, spending a month in Africa was relatively normal. You get back to school and I'd be like, everybody would be like, well, so, yeah, whatever. I went mountain biking and stuff in the summer. I'd be like, yeah, I was, in the middle of Africa on a Cape Buffalo hunt or something. Like, it's hard to even hard to understand at that point, like how different that is. So yeah, it was a huge influence and continues to be. I mean, I talk to Dad still all the time about, life stuff and career stuff. And, he always updates me in the things that he's doing because he's always working on different things. And he's always got these ideas for, things that he wants to do. And, he and I, although we have some interests that are different, we actually have a lot of similar interests too. He's, I could talk for all day about that. He's a really amazing, person, like a really interesting person.
Yeah, absolutely. So, growing up and having that influence, and I guess like you started doing that work, right? A lot of the camera work, and I guess where did that start? When did you pick up the camera and get involved in production and shooting and that sort of stuff? Where did that start at a real young age for you? Is that something that you kind of fell into? Because you won all these awards, you've created a lifestyle or life for yourself out of it. But where did that come from?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. Yeah. So the first time that I really got involved in that was, actually I wasn't involved at all. I was just observing. So I remember being, I don't know the exact ages. I mean, I'm going to generalize here, but I was probably, somewhere 13, 14, somewhere in there. And Dad was talking about starting this TV series. And, at the time I didn't watch hunting shows hardly at all. And the hunting shows I think were on it then were, really, really basic things. Like they're obviously looking back at them now, even on the early productions we did, I kind of cringe, but he was talking about starting something up. And I remember him, throwing ideas around. He landed on Hunting Adventures. And I think I actually told him, I was like, man, I don't know if that's a very good name, Dad. That's not going to fly. But that's what he went with. And I was too young then to be involved in this without violating like child labor laws. So there was Cody Robbins was the very first editor Dad had, and Cody's still a good friend, and obviously like doing very well for himself now in his own right. But he came over and let me think what they did. Dad at some point committed to doing this series, and I think the Outdoor Channel was starting up then, so he got involved with them, and he bought a computer system, editing system, and I think it was quite expensive in those days. We were not rocking and rolling quite as much as Dad is now. So I mean, it was a huge commitment for him. And Cody came over, from Saskatchewan, and he basically, from day one started editing on this setup, and I would watch. So Cody Robbins was my sort of first, can't believe I'm saying this, my first mentor in like the editing, computer production world. And I watched him literally come over as this kid, and he's a bit older than me, but still a kid, and learn to create a show. And he was turning around episodes in like 5 days or something crazy at that point. Now it might take us, 4 to 6 weeks, totally different with all. And so, yeah, I didn't I kind of went to the school of, I guess, hard knocks on that. I didn't, go to any fancy schools or production houses or have an experience like that. So I watched, and then at some point, a little later on, I'm trying to remember now. I think I got a little involved, like maybe I was in university, was it university? It was either high school or university. I think it was high school. I do a little bit of editing in the summer. And he had this segment called the SCI segment on Hunting Adventures. And I edited, I think, a few of those, but, nothing crazy. I go there, for a few hours during the day and do some editing. So anyway, not a very good candidate for starting a TV series. But then after I went off to university, so now I'm what might it be like, 21, 22, getting out of that. And this was where things kind of changed. So, and even in university, I found that on projects we were doing, I would sometimes just edit little movies together, play them in front of the class. And we're not going to win any, awards for what those were, but I was still somewhat involved in the editing space. And then after university, I thought, hey, I'm going to go into finance, Dad. I'm going to be a business guy, an entrepreneur. And so he said, okay. And I didn't. I hung around. I've still got guitars and stuff. I was playing songs and just kind of doing my own thing. And, I was a single kid living wherever I was living. I don't even know now. Just kind of, taking in the world, I guess. And one day Dad calls me he emails me. He's coming back from Afghanistan, right? So I'm doing all this stuff, kind of just being a regular dude, and Dad's, again, just in Afghanistan, again, like normal for me, but not normal for most people. And he says, I think it was Afghanistan. Maybe it was like Tajikistan. I can't remember. And no, it was Pakistan. He was coming back from Pakistan, not Afghanistan. And he said, hey, I've been thinking, I've got this idea for a series, on top of what we do with Hunting Adventures. And it's, what if we went kind of behind the scenes and showed more about what goes on into a hunt? Because in those days, most shows were like literally like, hello, my name is John. Today we're going to be hunting, mule deer. And it was a lot about, like how many kill shots you could have in the show, and a lot of really like heavy sponsor work, like heavy, sponsored content. And he said, well, why don't we like show behind the scenes, show us like getting ready, packing, and like what goes into planning these big trips. And, he's doing some pretty serious stuff where, there's danger involved, and there's logistics that are crazy, like whatever, helicoptering into the middle of like Russia and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, sure. Who do you want to do it? And he said, you. And I said, yeah, Dad, but I'm kind of busy, like, oh, did I lose you guys? Nope.
So there.
Okay. I said, yeah, I'm kind of busy doing nothing. And he said, okay, well, think about it. And so I did. And I thought about it. And then I started thinking of like what was holding me back from doing this. And at that time, again, I'm just trying to be honest here, in case anyone's listening and this means something to them. But growing up with someone like Dad is interesting because you take all this stuff for granted. Right? Like what an incredible opportunity that Dad's just like throwing my way. Like, hey, son, like, start this up. People would literally give their left arm, at the time to have that kind of opportunity. And here I am just sitting, kind of, not wasting my life away, but I wasn't like accomplishing anything that was going to be in a book or anything like that, or get me on a podcast one day. And so I think I made a good decision. I thought about it. I thought, what, this is a real opportunity. Let's see what I can do with that. So the problem, I'm getting long-winded here, but the problem at that point was I didn't know how to hardly edit at all. So I've only done little SCI segments. And I probably had some, natural ability at that. I was pretty techie even then, still am. And so I sat down on, I think it was YouTube at the time, was just kind of starting. That's pretty new too. And I sat down and I basically learned how to edit for, however, 6 months, something like that. And I would take time every day to make sure that I kind of knew what I was doing. And when it came time to actually put together like what would be the pilot for professionals, what came to be called professionals, which was that trip to Pakistan, I still didn't really know. So, I just kind of like faked it until I made it at that point, literally. So people, at that time, again, if you want to get a TV series done, especially then, people would say, hey, okay, here's what you need. You need $1 million production suite. You need a team of editors. You need, whatever, a producer, a line producer. You need catering. You need blah, 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 blah. And I had a laptop, which I had begged my dad to buy for me. So I had one laptop and I had a bedroom because I was sharing an apartment with like 3 guys at the time. There's no space for me to do this stuff. So, and I couldn't afford anything else. I had basically no money. And so I took a couple of like boxes basically, and I put them together into like a makeshift desk, like cardboard boxes, literally. And then I had my computer and I edited the first pilot of Professionals basically on that. And then I lied. I sent it off to the Outdoor Channel and I said that this was all shot, whatever the ProRes formats and stuff I had to be and wasn't. But what I did do was I spent an inordinate amount of time and energy on that at that time. So everybody else my age, again, I had been doing this. Everybody else now was, going out and partying, whatever they're doing. And I didn't. I basically just stayed inside for an extended period of time. And there's shots, I don't know how familiar you are with the Professional series, but there's shots, of like slow motion stuff going on, like jumping IBACs and things like that. Like I would spend days getting those shots right because we weren't shooting those in slow motion. We were shooting them in just regular HDV cams. And I figured out ways to, slow that down to 60 frames and then interpolate, or interpolate is even a word, I don't know. Make that seem like it was shot at 240 frames using like optical flow programs and stuff that people weren't doing at the time. Just because I was so naive that I didn't even know that you weren't supposed to do stuff that way. So I did. And honestly, there's luck involved here. At that time, there was some probably like, just some work ethic from my side and a lot of just naivety and not knowing that shouldn't be possible. So anyway, I'll draw this to a close, but I remember showing that Pakistan episode to Dad, and him kind of being like, "Okay, I think we have something." Because what I'm not mentioning here is behind the scenes. Now they're approaching sponsors. Dad's trying to get this new show launch, and there is a lot of pressure. And when you sit down and you have to show someone, even if he's your and actually maybe more so because he's your dad, show him something you've been working on and trying to come into fruition, like this vision that he's had. I'm trying to make it not just his vision, but expand on that and like throw a bit of like what I think it could be into that as well. And I'm kind of like shirking a little bit of the regular, formats of what is deemed to be successful in this space. Yeah, there's lots of pressure, and I was for all those reasons, it did end up working out.
So you guys, over the years, you guys won a ton of awards, you specifically for the work that you did. So do you credit that to obviously a ton of hard work? There's no doubt there. But first of all, you're not even working with the same tools that a lot of people are. That you didn't have the $1 million setup. You didn't have the production team. Was it like you said, your naivety and your innocence that just like, hey, I'm not predisposed. I'm just going to create something that I think is impactful. And then the show too didn't hurt, right? The fact that, that it was a new concept of Professionals as well. So what do you think the major successes were? Was it your knack for it, your, lack of official training? Because if you'd gone to school for it, your approach to it probably would have been different too. And then, quote, you're just another cookie cutter as well, possibly. So I'd like to get your perspective on that, Branlin.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't think that what I did sucked, right? Like I think that at the end of the day, you have to have something that, people end up liking, right? Whatever that metric is, there's great art, and then there's kind of, there's commercial success, and there's this, sort of muddy lines in between that. And definitely what I was doing was not great art. And it wasn't like ridiculously successful. Like, it's getting 200 million people to watch it, on HBO or something. So it was somewhere in between, and I tried to do my best. But one thing that, again, I don't know if this was naivety. It probably was. I didn't watch hunting shows. I think that helped a lot, right? Because now I never looked at a hunting show. In fact, I looked in completely the opposite. I didn't look at hunting shows as like this is the mecca because they're, ostensibly the best out there because it's whoever, whatever. I don't know what the hunting shows were then, but I didn't look at those as being like something that I'm striving to hit. So I start basically essentially with a blank canvas, and I'm watching movies by like Guy Ritchie, at that time, and thinking, wow, like that was so cool. I wonder if I can use that like cool editing stuff he does. There's a term for what his particular style is, into like a hunting show. And luckily, I didn't have anybody telling me that was dumb. And so I was kind of allowed to do some of that. And then I just browsed around to find stuff that struck me. I saw there's a really talented musician, composer, I guess, Tony Anderson. I'm still friends with today. And I saw something on YouTube that he was from used his music. There was a particular track. I'm trying to remember what it was. Anyway, and then I just, again, kind of being naive, I just reached out to him. I was like, hey, like, can I use your track on this TV series? I don't know if I really was too specific on that. I was making my bedroom. I think I kind of implied it was a bit bigger than what it really was. And so I got permission to use some of his music, and that really helped too, because now I'm not drawing from like your typical spots that you're going to draw, music that everybody else is doing on the outdoor TV at that time. So that helped a lot. But yeah, I think it's a combination of all this stuff. I think at the end of the day, you have to make something that is good, but you also have to be naive enough to try things that people aren't trying, and you either have to be naive or you have to be so good, which I wasn't, that you understand that like there's a better version of what's out there. And also, let me add this on: having Dad is part of this, right? And with the original concept, that was his. And so, again, and Dad's excellent on camera, and he's not just a hunter. He's he's an explorer. He's a poet. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of terms, tags you could put onto Dad's profile that helped tremendously. So, I'm not trying to take all the credit for this, but definitely on my side of this, it was not being afraid, or at least not being experienced enough to avoid taking risks and rolling dice, and then following through with that. Yeah, I mean, it was a tremendous shift in my life when Professionals came out, and we did again, back then they had all these award systems set up too, right, with the Golden Moose Awards, and that was a giant deal. I'm like a kid. I'm just a kid, and in a year I went from, I'd been to a Golden Moose Awards, I think the year before, because I think Hunting Ventures actually won it. And so I'd kind of seen that, and I remember thinking like, holy, bleep, this is like a big deal. There's like big names here. There's like 3,000 people in this audience. Like, this is no joke. And then we won it the next year. I mean, I was just like, I may be like winning the Grammys or something. I was just the Oscars, for me.
I remember that, actually. I remember that award being given out for the show, but at the time I didn't realize, that you were just so new to it as well, and creating this thing from your bedroom. So going from there, after that first year of creating the show, mm-hmm. and so did you go out and buy the best equipment and get all the latest and get a team, or what did it look like from there? So what was the transition after that first year?
Okay, so remember, and when we're filming this, usually we're about a year or even two behind on what's actually going on in the field, right? Especially at that time. So when Professionals became a little bit more, established, obviously after the first year, we got some more sponsorship dollars. A lot of the second year at that time was already kind of being shot or had been shot. So let me think here. What the next turning point for me was actually season 3 of the Professionals. So we did a series then in Nepal, and that, I'd been doing a little bit of shooting, but nothing special. And most of my stuff was on the editing side, the post production. But Nepal was different. Nepal, Dad, and this is Dad and I at this point talking about like what we could do that's kind of like a next step up. And there's all kinds of factors that go into this. It's not just about making something that's better. It's also about making something that's efficient from like a filming standpoint too, right? Because ultimately this is, although I didn't look at it as a business so much at that point, it's kind of what it is, right? You've got the reason we're allowed to do this, the reason we can do these cool adventures, and I'm allowed to, spend my life making creative things, is because ultimately there's a market for it. And so we were discussing like, what can we do next? Like, what can be Professionals like version 2? And we threw all kinds of stuff out there. But what we settled on was, well, what if it could be something like, we might be onto something here with thinking that a hunting series can be more than just about hunting. Because even Professionals wasn't totally about hunting, but it was still a lot about hunting. We had kill shots in every episode. And so Nepal, I thought, okay, that's cool. Nepal's cool, right? Because I'm not a strict hunter guy at all at that time. And I wasn't, some of the trips they're doing, like for me, it wasn't crazy exciting, but Nepal was. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to Nepal and let's see what we can do. And let's shoot for a longer format. And this is Dad and I discussing all this. And I can't remember if we had a name for it ahead of time, but it ended up being Uncharted, right? So we're going to go to Nepal and shoot a professional series anyway, or a professionals episode. Let's see how efficient we can be with their footage, and let's delve into the more like dramatic part of it. Let's tell a human interest story. Let's make it about the people, not so much about the animals. And again, being a little bit naive about it, and also lucky, we got there, and Nepal was just I could not think of a more perfect place to film a series like that than Nepal. So we got there ahead of time, myself and my very good friend, Matt Gibson, and with just cameras. This was before Dad or anybody got there. And we spent like 3 days just going around and filming, in the middle of Kathmandu. And if you watch the Nepal series, which is a 4-part series in season 3 of The Professionals, you'll see that. I mean, we've got like nothing to do with hunting. So we've got like Hindu, temples and people getting cremated and just like, I don't even have the words for it. Just really cool, like visuals. And I kind of ran with that. And and then Dad and then Corey Knowlton was with us at this point. He got to Nepal. Then we filmed for 2 weeks in the middle of the mountains. And we were, sleeping at 14,000 feet and climbing during the day.
Jeez.
It was a dream for me. Right. This is like I love the mountain. I really do. I love the mountains. And this was my first experience of like doing like the real mountains, where you're looking up and like, okay, that's Annapurna. And you're in a helicopter and you're looking up at it.
Wow.
And like way up. And I'm thinking, holy, like it just blows my mind. So not only did that work out for me just because of, what we thought professionals could be and the planning that went into that, but also I was really inspired. I mean, I'd be waking up at 2 a.m. to film, all kinds of stuff in the middle of the night because I was so excited to get like the footage we were getting. I mean, we were getting like, Milky Way time-lapse stuff, which at the time nobody was doing. I'd never seen any of that stuff on the Outdoor Channel or hardly anywhere. And so I'm on top of this mountain at 14,000 feet getting this like crazy, views of the heavens and stuff. And on my little DSLR, my Canon 60D at the time, just thinking I'm like the luckiest guy ever and like really having like, really inspired moments. And so then we got all that footage, and this is blue sheep. I think we're hunting blue sheep and Himalayan tar at that point. And the content was amazing. I mean, Matt got altitude sickness and was, throwing up blood and all kinds of stuff. That's horrible, but also perfect for like from a film standpoint. And it was, and then that we had a big rock that Matt was kind of got unlucky in this trip. A big rock fell off a cliff and almost killed Matt actually. So that was on there. And I don't know, there was just something about that trip. So we brought all that footage back, and then I think I've got like a photo somewhere of me with this content working on it. But I don't know. I was just, there's certain times in your life where you hit like your stride, like you hit like, you're like, okay, this is where I don't feel like I can do any wrong. And it was at that point for me. I mean, I'm not comparing myself to like bigger artists and things, but I think people have like their golden era or whatever. And I think like for me, that really was a point where I just thought, okay, I just can't I don't feel like I can do wrong with this. And that instead of being, normally we go for a 10-day shoot and that would be like a one episode, maybe 2 episodes. We made this into a 4-episode series. And I can't remember, the second or third episode had no kill shot at all. So there's hardly any hunting. There's hardly any hunting in the first episode either. And that was, again, that was a risk for us at the time. But Dad and I talked and we're like, I think it'll be fine. I think we have to assume that the audience on the Outdoor Channel and they don't, they're not on there just to see stuff die. And I truly don't believe that. There's more to, first of all, there's more to hunting than that, but there's more to, telling hunting stories than that too. And so anyway, that was that was definitely the next turning point for me. And that was kind of our pitch for Uncharted. And then we went to the Door Channel and said, hey, people love the Nepal series. And I think the Door Channel loved the Nepal series. And it's still probably my favorite series. And we said, well, why don't we start doing that more often? Instead of a half-hour series, let's tell stories in like hour-long chunks, and let's make them more about the people rather than the hunt.
Yep. I've always said that the cookie cutter episodes where we're going to sit in a tree stand over top of a bait pile waiting for whitetail to walk in, those are the ones I click right by. But the ones like Professionals, Uncharted, those are the ones that tell a story that, as you said, it's more than the kill. And that's what grabs me every time. And I love the realness and the rawness of those stories. So yeah, well done. Love those.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. So transition from there. So after Uncharted, then where did you get off to?
Okay, so we did 4 seasons of Professionals because, again, there's kind of like a year lag, right? And then we switched Professionals over to Uncharted. Now, again, this is kind of, there's all kinds of reasons why we make changes like this. But this was to be more like the Nepal series. So, again, I was filming. So for the first season of Uncharted, when that aired, those are hour-long episodes now. And the difference between... maybe people listening will grasp this, but the difference between a half hour, like telling a story in a half hour, and an hour is gigantic, because you can't just like fluff over stuff. You really got to like delve into it, because, and this is something that, I realized at the time, or I look back, it was made a lot harder, but we're not really necessarily filming more, right? So we're kind of filming the same amount, but then we're trying to get double the amount of content out of that and make it better at the same time. So that was a huge challenge for me. And I think the first season of Uncharted and some of the other seasons as well were great. And I think we did hit that mark sometimes, and sometimes it was tough. Sometimes we were really stretching footage to try and make, enough content to last for 13 episodes. And I have to put a caveat in here, because I'm kind of implying that I filmed this. It was actually... I filmed most of the first season, but then most of everything else was filmed by a guy named Matt Zanil, who, I just want to say that because he just would outwork anybody out there. He's a real true talent and a good friend of mine now. And he kind of like carried that torch after, because I was juggling between doing the field work and the post work, and it became a lot, right, to try and get that to all work out. And at this time, let me think here, going back time. It wasn't just me now in like my bedroom with a cardboard desk. This was now, I had an apartment in Vancouver, right? Because now we're doing a lot of content. I can't edit that all myself. So I had people helping and actually doing most of the editing in Uncharted. So I was kind of mostly like overseeing a lot of it. And, but I still couldn't afford like an office. So I had totally illegally, I went and bought a bunch of secondhand desks, and I lined up my apartment. I had like a 1,000 square foot apartment in Vancouver, and not a nice apartment at all. And I lined the edge of the room with a bunch of desks. And then when we hired editors or colorists or whoever was coming in there, they just come into my apartment. So they trod down the hall, knock on the door, and then I let them in before any of the neighbors saw. And then so every day, we have anywhere from 4 to 8 people working in my apartment. So yeah, which is definitely like not something you're supposed not to code anyway. And we. That's how we made Uncharted for the most part. And then I think by season 3, I had also picked up a couple of another series called Carter's War at that point. Somewhere out there was some overlap. So we're doing Uncharted and Carter's War, because Uncharted was commercially successful, as well. But it was based on that idea in Nepal that like you can make a series about more than just the hunt. And so we would try and find places. Dad would say, okay, I'm going to go over the world this year. Like, where do we want to shoot Uncharted with? And I'd try and, figure with him, like, where we want to shoot it. So I don't know if I'm kind of wandering over the place and what happened with that, but that's
very cool, man. It's quite a journey. So just before we move on to the next part, is your passion the editing side of it, production side? Is it behind the camera, a little of both? I know there's a trade-off, and I know, talking to your dad, he's transitioned, right? He doesn't want to travel anymore. He wants to be at home. Is that something that's important to you now with the young family and stuff?
Yeah. I'm just going to speak honest here. That first year where I'm filming, a lot for Uncharted, that's just a fraction of what Dad would even do in a year. And it's a fraction of what Matt Zanil would later do when he was, filming for all of it or most of it. And it was, I found it hard. We'd be up in the Arctic for, shooting for like 3 weeks. It's rough. You talk about, I didn't always have the same experience as I had with something like Nepal, where I just feel like so inspired. I remember in the Arctic in particular, or like even Papua New Guinea was a little bit like this. I mean, it's like tough. Like I've got camera stuff that's like literally Papua New Guinea was like rotting, like, just like rotting, like just like components falling out of it because it's just like so humid and muddy and then on the Arctic side, again, I think, oh, it's so great, because I'm looking at all this stuff from like what it will eventually be like on as a show. I think I'm like, say, well, you got all the elements there. You've got a culture that's, in dire straits, and literally that was amazing. And you've got this crazy environment that no one's really filmed in or not filmed right. And then Dad's like, yeah, but you got to understand like that. There's a reason why they're not filming up there. It's because it's hard. It's like tough. And so we got up there and if anybody hasn't experienced like a minus 100 wind chill, I mean, I promise you it changes the way you think about, coldness and Mother Nature. I mean, it was rough. Like, I'd be filming out there with my camera gear. First of all, my batteries would last like 5 minutes. And then I couldn't operate the cameras with my gloves on, so I'd have to take my gloves off every so often. And my hands would get so cold that when I put my hand back in the glove, I couldn't feel my hand, like literally nothing. So I put it in, and after a while, I realized something was off with the way my finger felt, or my hands were feeling. So I looked down, and like my finger would just be out of the glove. I'd put like 3 fingers in, but one hanging out and not realize it. Just like, and then traveling all day on the back of, dog sleds, and you're just getting, don't think of the snow up there. I'm sure you guys have done this kind of stuff, but the snow is not soft and like, this is not Frosty the Snowman stuff. Like it's like hard ice, and we're just getting crushed all day long in the back of these dog sleds, having to lie down. And then this is not me complaining. I'm just trying to describe like this experience. And then, I wouldn't know how to use my face mask properly, right? Because you have to use a face mask. It's too cold. Your eyelids literally freeze. So I have my face mask on, and then within maybe, I'd say 3 or 4 minutes, it would be completely clouded with frost. And you cannot get that frost off. So for the rest of the day, your face mask is covered in frost. So you're sitting there getting pounded in the back of a dog sled. You can't see anything. And it's for like 8 hours. And I think I had a couple times and it was like, maybe like filming full time for Uncharted isn't for me, because I'm just frankly not tough enough. Just like not. So yeah, to answer your question, am I more than any guy? I love filming. I really do. So I think if I had to, if someone said like, hey, you can only do one part of this for the rest of your life, it would be cinematography, filming. Although I will say, I think the editing is where the real value comes in, and where I think most people trip up a little bit is editing is where you tell the stories, really where you flesh things out and where you bring audiences on like an emotional journey. Because you can shoot the best content in the planet and it just comes off as flat for people. And there's an art to it. Mm-hmm. I'm not claiming to be the best editor ever. There's people that were working with me now in Uncharted who are far better editors than I will ever be. And, I was working with them at that point, but it was, I like it all, but I think definitely for me, I love the mountains. So with the camera in hand in the mountains, it's hard for me to beat.
I'm in Prince George, and I predator hunt every winter. And I know late December, early January, we can get minus 30 here. Then you jump on the back of a sled and you're going 30, 40K. And we're only hitting minus 45 with the wind. I know what you mean about the freezing of the goggles. I can imagine 100. That's insane, like unfathomable.
It was, it was, I actually, I think I came out of that and I said, okay, everybody needs to be able to experience that like once in their lives, because you will never, ever, ever complain about being cold again. It's just not the same. Like,
yep.
But also I say that, and this happened. This was also with a lot. Like again, this is me realizing, especially as I get older, like how lucky I was, right? Because it's not just in the Arctic. I spent time in Africa with, literally like some of the poorest people in the world, or in Papua New Guinea, where they literally have hardly even seen, like they're looking at your camera as if you're some kind of a space alien. Like you're just totally culturally, I mean, you realize like the diversity of cultures out there, and how easy it is to take what we have in the Western world for granted. And not just like physical things. I'm talking about also just like our knowledge, like our experiences and our what is it? Just the I don't know, the viewpoint we have in the West. Like it's very easy to kind of get cozy into that and thinking that this is what everybody has and how everybody sees the world, and it's just not true. But saying that, I would go to a place of the Arctic and say, wow, this, everybody should experience this. I'll never take the cold for granted again. But I guarantee you within a few months that those memories fade. And, I walk outside and it's whatever, minus whatever 5, and I'm complaining about it. Or I mentioned something about how cold it is. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I think in one way I've been ridiculously lucky. But I don't know that I've maximized that completely. I think I still fall into the trap of like I say, like worrying about if I'm getting a soy latte or a regular latte from Starbucks. When I know for a fact, when I came back from filming in Africa, I wouldn't. I would treasure that little drink I had and think this is the greatest thing ever, and we're so lucky. But then that fades over time.
Yeah, right on. So you look at these experiences you've had, and you talked about some of your uncomfortable ones and then things that are impactful. When you think back, what's the one that stands out for you that was the most extreme? Was it that Arctic experience? And then the other one I would really want to know is what's your closest experience to dying? Because I think the professionals and Uncharted, there's lots of times where you guys were doing some pretty dodgy stuff. So is there anything that stands out where it's like, wow, that was pretty serious and we're lucky that it didn't go bad?
Yes. Okay. And again, I want to caveat this by like, I'm not some tough guy, really. And I tell this to people a lot of times when we go like out and we film stuff. I don't want to be the toughest. I'm not pretending to be the toughest. I don't have any desire to test my, mettle against like whatever, a grizzly bear or something. It's just not me. But I think that story wise and film wise, you have to go to, somewhere along the envelope at some point to get the best stuff, right? Otherwise, what are we doing? If we're calling a show Uncharted, I mean, you better be doing something that's kind of Uncharted, right? So, okay. I would say just like in terms of like conditions, I think the Arctic was the hardest. It's definitely hardest on camera gear. It's hardest on the human body. It's certainly not a place that I go up and think like, wow, like humans are meant to be here. It gave me a lot of respect for the indigenous peoples that have been up there, that have lived up there without modern comforts. It's just unbelievable to imagine them living in a place like that and not just like saying, yeah, okay, I'm going to head south, like until I find something a little bit more manageable. I mean, it's blows my mind, and it's very humbling even now to think about that. Near death experiences. So I don't think I've had anything quite like what Matt had in Nepal where that rock was falling down. I mean, that was pretty legit. I mean, you could easily have died there. Okay, I can probably mention 2. One, and this is not actually near death. So anybody who's done a lot of hunting in Africa will probably laugh at this, especially professional hunters, because this happens fairly often. But we were in, I was like, I don't know, I think I was in high school, and we were in Africa, and Dad took me, we were leopard hunting. And, again, normal for me at that time, but very not normal for the high school kid to be leopard hunting. I wasn't hunting. I was just kind of observing at that point. So I think it was Cody Robbins was there. Dad was there. I was there. And then a guy named Mike Fell was in the tent. I think it was Mike Fell. And Mike Fell is a professional PH there. And like all PHs in Africa, I mean, they're kind of the toughest of the tough. And Mike, I think, is one of the tougher of the toughest of the tough, if that makes any sense. I mean, he's just like as tough as they come. Anyway, we were in a blind on the ground waiting for a leopard to come in the morning. And you have a bunch of bait in front of you. But in Africa, there's not just leopards, there's also lions. So, and Africa was very dry. And at that point, I would get nosebleeds like all the time. So I'm just like nosebleeding all the time in Africa. And we walk out there in the morning and my nose starts bleeding. So it's just bleeding all over. And I'm holding it, doing the best I can to stop it from bleeding. And now we're in the tent. But there's blood all over my hands, right? And
you're basically baiting, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this is, you can kind of see where this is going. So we're waiting there, and you're in the pitch black. You get there like 4 a.m. It's pitch dark and you can't see anything, but you can hear stuff. And in Africa, there's a lot of things you can hear. And a lot of things in Africa aren't necessarily friendly. And obviously lions are ones that are very much not. At nighttime in Africa where we were, lions are not scared of humans at all. It's not like daytime, totally different. They see you in the day, they, may or may not run, but nighttime, you're just another, walking lamb chop for them. So, where we started hearing, footprints, like padded footprints. And I was thinking, okay, leopard's coming. And then you start hearing a lot more padded footprints and you think, no, that's not leopard. There's not a bunch of leopards, right? It'll be just one. So that's probably lions. And then, you start wondering if they're coming to the bait or not. And then you realize, no, it's far too close to be hearing the footprints, for the bait. So anyway, we started hearing these footprints come all around our little blind. And you can't, again, it's pitch dark. You can't hear anything. There is a gun, but it's a muzzle loader and it's just like propped up on the, inside of the tent somewhere. And it wouldn't do any good anyway. You can't hear anything. So you can't see anything. So we're sitting there in dead silence. I remember kind of looking at Dad and him kind of looking back at me. And, Dad, again, way tougher than me by a bajillion times. Dad doesn't get scared often, and he wasn't scared then. But he definitely gave me like an eye, like I could see by his eyes, like, this is a little bit serious. Like, this is something that's kind of crazy. And these lions started coming around our tent, and not just like walking around it, but started like huffing at it. Like they kind of go to the bottom, and they kind of go like blowing stuff. Like I think what it is, and Mike Fell explained this after. Like to them, they don't know what this is. Like the blind looks like it's fabric, right? It's just it's basically a tent. It's a very weak tent. And they look at it and like, maybe it's like an ant mound or something. Not sure what to do with it. But in reality, the only thing that's separating us from the lion, literally 2 feet away, is, the flimsiest little piece of fabric ever. And my nose is bleeding, so I've got blood everywhere. So they're huffing at the tent. And they're trying to get, again, Mike Fell explained this later because he's not talking at the time, but he said they're trying to get you to run. They're trying to get whatever's in there. They don't know or what this is, but they're seeing if they can get something to, scurry out of there and, kill it. So you can't run. And then they started kind of batting stuff around, and they knocked a big branch, and I think it fell on Dad, on his shoulder kind of thing. So they're trying to fuss around this thing and try and get us out of there. So anyway, that was a not great. That was an experience for me where I thought, I felt my heart start going. I thought, oh, okay, this actually could be like very not good. And I was scared. I'm not afraid to admit I was scared at that point. And I know for a fact Mike Fell was not scared, and I don't think Dad was either. But that for me changed things. The way I looked at the stuff that I was doing at that time. And I think actually I sat out after going leopard hunting after that, because I was just like, that just doesn't seem worth it to me. That doesn't seem fun. I don't want to get, as much as I like filming, I don't want to get, clawed to death by some giant lion. I think Mike Fell said something funny. He said, yeah, they don't realize that they've got zippers, like they've got 5 zippers on each hand ready to just rip through the tent if they want it. They just don't, but they could. So yeah, that sucked. Wow. But yeah, but I'm trying to think if I've had other ones. I mean, definitely I was in a couple experiences in, when we were shooting Carter's War, which is like an African show, when it's about Ivan Carter was basically tracking down like anti-poachers in that place. And again, you're getting into the realm where this is like a dangerous thing to do, like chasing down. We weren't actually chasing down poachers, but even being in those environments, you hear the gunshots and you go and you find like the dead rhinos and stuff. It was horrible. But it's life or death stuff. Like, I mean, those people, the park rangers, when they find the poachers, I mean, often they get shot. Like it's like a war. So that was kind of dangerous. We had some pretty dangerous experiences with close-up elephant stuff, stuff where I know that, if you were to run in if you were to act a certain way with animals, sometimes they'll see that, that's an opportunity for them. And elephants are kind of like that. So I know at one time, I won't go into details, but one time in Africa, I had to like stand my ground, with an elephant kind of coming at me sort of thing. And I had to do that with the knowledge that like, if I would run in this case, I'd be in a lot of trouble. So, and I don't like being in those situations where like, it's kind of like you're putting your life on the line. And again, I want to caveat this stuff. Like, I don't do anything near what Ivan would do or, what Dad has done. Dad's been charged and all this stuff, like just crazy stuff. And I've never been at that point. I've never been like, okay, I think I'm going to die. And very thankfully, and I've tried to avoid those scenarios. And then quickly, the closest I've actually ever been to death was I was driving down a highway in Texas 6 months ago, or a year ago now, with Corey Knowlton. And we were driving, and the speed limit's 75, right? So nothing to do with hunting, nothing to do with filming. I wasn't even thinking about taking chances at this point, but speed limit 75, we're going 75. And it was kind of getting to dusk. And in Texas, they have these weird kind of on-ramps on the highways. And I wrote about this on Instagram, but this, I found out later, I guess this 80-year-old guy, he got onto the highway going 75 miles an hour, thinking he was heading, thinking he was heading westbound. No, thinking he was heading eastbound, but he was heading westbound. So he got on the highway going the wrong way. And so we were driving, it was Corey and I, and then right next to us was another vehicle driven by, I don't know his name. I found this out later, of course, because I didn't know them at the time. But it was just, a guy with 2 kids at home, and a wife. And just like me, I've got a wife, 2 kids at home. And this elderly guy started driving down the highway in the wrong direction, and just, he could have been in either lane, and he chose to be in the one lane. So he hit the car next to us and killed everybody.
Wow.
And we were just driving around. Yeah. And I mean, even now it's kind of giving me goosebumps, but you're going 75 on a highway, and you don't have, we couldn't really see, there's like a semi truck kind of, we just couldn't really see what happened and what was coming. You only have like a second to see it. And then it just happens like that. And you hear the crunch of those cars hitting, like, okay, like nobody survived that. So that was the closest I've come to actually dying. Far closer than any experience I've had that I know about anyway in, filming in remote locations.
Yeah, always the case, right? You have all these near-death experiences, but it's never the one that gets you. It's something like that, right? The one you don't see. So.
Yeah, and what a waste that would be. I remember thinking like, wow, like I wouldn't even have time to even think about hardly anything. It's like split second. There's no, and there was no like, no angelic choir, no thoughts of, whatever, the life I've lived, or, so it really was a kind of an eye-opening thing for me, and something that I try and keep with me, because I can't imagine realizing a car's coming at you and you're about to die and having like regrets in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, let's segue a little bit. What's the current project? What are you working on now? What's on the agenda for you and your team right now?
Yeah, so I'm working on I think I mentioned earlier, but I'm working on a project called I don't know if I want to say the title. I don't think it's kind of in development, so I better not. But we're going to be, and I won't even go into too many details, but basically I'm doing another series with the Outdoor Channel. It's going to be super cool, I think. And it's going to sort of focus on this USA made, this kind of American made shift, this kind of grassroots movement we're seeing right now. And I'm down in Kansas City, so I'm in like a perfect spot to film this and be a part of that. So that's really exciting, and it isn't, again, I'm kind of getting away from like my base, right? Like where I learned how to film and do everything was out in the middle of nowhere. And in some respects, that's pretty freeing, right? Because you can kind of do whatever you want. There's not a lot of like established paths that you should follow or shouldn't follow. There's a few, but it's not like doing a series like this is. So this is a whole new world to me. We're dealing with lighting and, camera people, like, grips and like catering and things like that, like stuff that I'm not used to. So it's out of my comfort zone a little bit. But I'm excited. Like, I think for me, this is a chance to, like see if, I can kind of, again, get like to another rung on the ladder type thing, like climb and like get past another obstacle and make something that succeeds. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. I've got a bunch of other projects going as well, but I kind of have a lot of like pokers in the fire, but nothing that is like really coming through quite yet or that I can talk about. But I'm definitely like expanding beyond just the hunting space, but also in some ways like going back into it too, looking at it from a different angle, from more like a commercial angle, from like a branding angle, getting into more like, consulting / branding projects, and seeing if I can take skills that I've learned in the outdoor world and again, provide value to other people and varying audiences.
So on that theme, I guess aspirationally, and you see yourself, you're young guy, you've got a young family, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road. Do you see yourself heavily in the film industry? We got the legacy back home, right? You've got, what your dad's created, his outfitting businesses and his brand as well, right? There's, there's probably an opportunity for secession there as well. Have you given that some thought where you see yourself 10, 20, 30 years down the road?
Yeah. That's a really good question, man. There's so many unknowns, I think that for me, I will definitely always still try to be involved in the film space, like in the cinematography space, in the editing space, because, honestly, I really like it. And I feel like, again, through a lot of, sort of naive moves and things, like I've gained a lot of experience in that space. So, for me, I don't, man, 25 years is a long way off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. At some point I would love to also, start working with younger generations, people that are looking for opportunities that are, like what I was, when I was 20, that are kind of floating around and looking for something to apply themselves to. I love to, provide opportunities for that, for creatives. I think there's tremendous opportunity for creatives, especially even in the outdoor space, to all kind of get together and become greater than the sum of their parts, if that makes sense. So yeah, I would love to drive forward something like that. I am working towards that. And there's some exciting things we're working on now that I think hopefully will come to fruition. And if you talk to me in a year, maybe we can talk about it. But I'd love to be like an enabler, like not a beacon's the wrong word, but a leader in that space, in the creative space in the outdoor world.
Awesome. So Kansas City, is that where you guys are for the foreseeable future? You see yourself coming back to the West Coast, or how does that look for you?
Yeah, so my wife and I love, first of all, we love the West Coast. We didn't move because we necessarily wanted to, and we love it here too. But my wife got fairly sick a few years ago, and we couldn't figure out what was going on really, and we still kind of haven't. And so we actually moved down to Kansas City to be closer to her family because her family's here, and they have a lot of, they have a lot of time to help with the kids and be supportive with her. When I was kind of like, well, eventually I got to start really getting out there and put in longer work days and doing kind of the dad thing. So that's kind of why we're here right now. But we actually kept our place up in Canada, and yeah, our plan is to eventually move back there, move close to there, or definitely come back up to the West Coast if we can swing it.
Awesome. Any hunt plans for the fall? You got anything going on, or are you just working lots? So what's the plan there?
Yeah. So this series for the Outdoor Channel, that's going to be a lot of my film. Kind of like that's people are asking what I'm doing in the fall. I mean, that's going to take up a lot of it, I think. So I don't know that I'll be doing any hunts. I went up on a cool one on Alaska. So about just a little over a year ago. So that was with Cam Haynes and Kip Falks, and that was pretty incredible. That was cool. So that's actually the last hunt that I've done though. So I haven't, again, because I don't, in the old days, or not even that long ago, I had a lot of vehicles for using footage and things like that, right? Like Uncharted, Carter's War, stuff like that. So I had a reason for going. But nowadays, people are like, well, come film the hunt. I'm like, well, okay, that's cool. But like, what's the reason behind it? Because now I'm not a single kid anymore, just kind of with nothing else to do but going and film stuff. Like I've got a family, I've got, mortgages, I've got responsibilities, accountabilities. And so, I have to look at the full, I have to take a step back and kind of look at the full picture now, rather than just being like, yeah, that'd be an awesome adventure. Let's go,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Branlin, I just want to thank you for chatting today. And and definitely when this new episode comes out or this new show comes out, let us know what it is. I want to hear all about it. I'm stoked to hear about it. So, and maybe a year down the road, let's do this again and catch up and see where you get to. It's always fun to watch your journeys. And yeah, I was watching your stuff with Cam there, so I was wondering, were you doing any photography work on that or some film work on that, or what was going on with the stuff with Cam?
Yeah, so I actually did a whole film with that. Okay. So that's kind of thing. I was like, okay, if I go up there, first of all, I'm a big fan of Cam, and I'm a big fan of Kip Falks too, actually. And Kip Falks was the co-founder of Under Armour, right? So literally brought Under Armour from like a thing in his buddy's basement to $5 billion company, and he's a really interesting guy, not just because of that too. And so we went up there, and we ended up, literally we got there and it was like 70 degrees, and the next day, Fahrenheit, and the next day it was like a blizzard. Just like the most ridiculous weather change I've like ever seen in my life, to where we're just like huddling in our tent all day long, like freezing. So I spent a lot of time with those guys. Anyway, we I thought, okay, if I go up there, I'll make a film, and we'll just see what we can do, because distribution platforms are changing. In the old days, you had to have whatever, a cable network to support you, or some kind of distribution network that was established with whatever. Blockbuster, whoever. Nowadays, totally different. You can film something and release it online right now on YouTube for free. So I thought, well, this would be a cool opportunity to do that. And we did. We made an awesome film. We're still working. I won't go through the details, but we're working through like how we're going to release it, and if we're going to release it. So that could be something down the line that gets done, or it could be shelved. I don't know, but we'll see.
Okay, well, keep us in mind. We can release it through the Wild Sheep Society BC channels anyway.
yeah.
We'd love to have it. So, right on. Well, hey, that is awesome. What a great chat. It was so cool to catch up with you, and we got to do it again. It's awesome to hear everything, and got to come up for BC and come chase some sheep around or something like that.
Oh, that'd be so cool. I'd love to do that. I really appreciate you guys having me on here, and hopefully I didn't ramble.
No, it was great, man. Appreciate it.